So Loic kicked me out of my orbiter to install a time machine, therefore I cannot film in my usual spot. So I kindly requested Kai to let me record in here. Anyways, let's talk about Excalibur. Again. If you don't know, Excalibur is my favorite frame in this game. However, he has a huge problem that keeps him trapped in B tier. No, it's not the damage because he can dish out a lot of damage. The main problem is his survivability. Excalibur's survivability is so bad that he has to rely on invincibility frames, shield gating, primed sure-footed, and other stuff to survive long enough. This is one of the few reasons some people don't like playing as him. So today, I'll be presenting my pitch for an Excalibur buff/rework. Okay, before we start, I know there's tons of other frames who desperately need a rework more than him, but don't act like Excalibur needs some help too. Anyways, back to the video. Let's start with Excalibur's passives. His first passive gives 10% melee damage and 10% attack speed to all sword-type melee weapons. The first obvious issue is that the passive only applies to swords, dual swords, nikanas, and rapiers, which are weapon types that not a lot of people use. The second issue is that the 10% melee damage and attack speed buffs are so low and additive, so you'll barely notice it in gameplay. Cool Kid already gave his pitch on how this passive can be improved, which is to apply the passive to all melee weapons, increase the melee damage and attack speed to 25%, and add 2% lifesteal on melee strikes. Although I'd also add in a new effect to this passive, which is 3 meters of range on melee weapons. Why? Because it's funny. Excalibur's second passive is exclusive to Excalibur Umbra. Upon transferring into the operator, Umbra will gain sentience and fight by himself. This passive sounds cool on paper, but it's so buggy that it's actually horrible. So how would I fix it? Well...
Pablo, for the love of God, please fix the Umbral Sentience passive bug where transferring back into Umbra stops any active ability that works on duration. This has been an issue for years. Don't just give us a band-aid augment and call it a day. Fix this bullshit. One of the many reasons people love Umbra as a character in the story is because of his sentience, so don't just make him act like every other Warframe to fix this fucking bug. And speaking of the story, Rebecca, for the love of God, please involve Umbra in more quests. I hate seeing him collapse on himself after transferring out of him. Please fix this, Rebecca. I'm begging you, I'll do anything. Just give some love to my pookie.
Sorry about that rant. Let's just move on. Excalibur's first ability is slash dash, where he, dashes between enemies and slashes them. Not only is this ability a good mobility tool in the early game, it's also a stat stick, so it can do a shit ton of damage. But the main issue is that during slash dash, Excalibur is only health immune, meaning his shields will take damage. So once you're done with slash dash, you're met with impending doom. So what I would do to fix this is to make Excalibur fully immune during slash dash, and this is probably a hot take. I'd incorporate surging dash into the base ability. To make up for the lack of a slash dash augment, I'd make a new augment called shielding dash, where Excalibur and allies within range get a certain amount of shields for each enemy caught in slash dash, which will help with your shield gating needs.
Wait, isn't that just a better version of purging dash?
When was the last time you actually thought about the Conclave augments before this video? The next ability is Radial Blind, where he, blinds enemies. Even though this is a good ability to temporarily stop enemy fire, what I would do to make it better, and this probably another hot take, is to make it so that it also disarms enemies. The disarming effect will be absent from the Helmet version of the ability. Excalibur's third ability is Wait, how did this get in here? What the fuck? Excalibur's third ability is Radial Javelin, where he slams his sword into the ground and sends thousands of tiny swords towards enemies. To be honest, I don't have much for this ability, so I guess just increase its damage by a fuck ton. However, I would make an augment for it called Protective Javelin, where each enemy hit will give Excalibur and nearby allies a certain amount of overguard. Excalibur's final ability is Exalted Blade, which is his exalted weapon. Now, some of the changes I want for the Exalted Blade can be applied to literally every exalted melee in the game, so let's start with the Exalted Blade specific changes. This first one is a bit of a personal issue, but the stance feels kinda slow and sluggish, so I'd update it to feel smoother and faster. Secondly, why does the slide attack still take 25 energy? Just get rid of that shit. Thirdly, I'd increase the crit chance, like why is it just 15%? And lastly, I'd give Exalted Blade a unique heavy attack where Excalibur launches a large wave of energy that deals a fuck ton of damage. And I would make it so that if you have Chromatic Blade equipped, the heavy attack will deal 4 random status effects at 10 stacks, alongside the status effects you modded on your Exalted Blade. And for the general Exalted melee changes, I'd allow Acolyte mods and melee arcanes to be used on them. Lastly, for the Prime and Umbra versions, I'd increase their health, armor, and shields by 20 to 30%. So that was my pitch for an Excalibur buff/rework. If you have your own pitch for an Excalibur buff/rework, let me know in the comments below so that I can ignore them. And you know the usual. Like, comment, sub, and follow me on Twitter. And with that, thanks for watching.